Welcome everyone, it's Gray Shirt Guy, rocking the gray shirt as always, back at you with another painting tutorial. We're going to be painting this orange and black Penal Legion color scheme, and it is a little glossy on camera. If you would like, you can knock that down with a little matte varnish, but I think it's fine from a distance. Catches the light a little bit, and it's kind of a semi-gloss, but we'll be going over how I painted this using our test model here. And yeah, the base for this one is a 28mm base from Micro Art Studios, and not a sponsor, but that's where I got the base from. I think it's a Ruined Citadel, and then I painted it up. It comes unpainted. And yeah, so we have our little plasma gunner here, looking pretty nice. And yeah, so we're going to be getting into how I did this color scheme. Now, for how we did it, I'll show you the test model that we're going to be, or the painting test model we're going to be using. I've already tested the scheme out. But we're going to be using this from the new Cadia Stands box set. We're going to be using this veteran with a power sword and a bolt gun. This is not the commander. My commander has, although the same loadout, my commander has a different jacket and everything. So this is from the command squad, if you're wondering where this model comes from. That's where this pose comes from. You can take either you can take a special weapon, or you can take a melee weapon. And for the specific loadout I have for the squad, it's very, very close combat oriented. And which, if you throw in some other supporting characters, it's pretty resilient. So, wanted to get that power sword in there. Anyways, we're going to be using this. We're going to be painting up with the same color scheme. Now, what do we use first? What we did first is we used a black surface primer from Vallejo. We don't have any sponsors for this video, obviously, but this is the primer I used. You can use a black primer of your preference. Any sort of rattle can will work just fine. And then after that, we did a zenithal of dead white game air. If you wanted to go straight to just use a white primer. I've had issues with white primers not providing smooth, silky coverage. You can do if you have a preferred white primer. But I went with this. I kind of like the way the zenithal works. From the top, really bright white, and from the bottom, still got the dark shadows. Now, that doesn't really, with the amount of layers we're going to be doing with the base coat paints we're going to be using, the zenithal isn't that big of a deal for the finished product, but I do like how it looks as we're painting. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first color we're going to be using is Jacaro orange. This is a Citadel base orange. It's kind of a dirty, darker orange, but with the washes, we get a more vibrant color later on. You can also choose a wide range of other oranges, but I do like this base orange. It goes on really well, and when you make mistakes, because you will make mistakes with this color scheme, you can cover it with the orange pretty easily in 1 to 2 coats after you make a mistake. So I'll explain the first few layers. So we're gonna be doing the orange first, and then we'll be going off into more than likely Rhinox hide for the belts, but we might be doing, where'd I put it? A Baden black for the armor right after we do the orange. And with this model, it should be fine because it's not a lot of clumpy detail. We should be able to get into here pretty relatively easily. But with something similar to this model right here, it is a huge pain to get every single thing done. So let's kind of get into it. All right, well, I will start off with the orange, and we'll be back when the orange is base coated. All right, so this is after a single coat of the Jacaro. Is it Jacaro? Jacaro? Yeah, anyways, or Jacaro, if you want to say it a different way. So this is a single coat. As you can see, a single coat even over white, not great coverage, but this isn't contrast paint. This is regular and base paint layers. So we're gonna be moving on, doing a second coat of the orange. All right, we finished our second coat of the Jacaro orange. And for the most part, it's covering really well. There could be some areas in the bottom that are a little darker, but with that zenithal highlight, that's what you're going to get. If you do an overall white, you're probably going to get a little more consistent coloring. But yeah, the orange looks great. I think it's going to take the the wash really well. Now you could wash it at this stage, but what I've noticed when I was painting some of the other test models is you can make a lot of mistakes when you're applying the blacks or the other colors, spilling over onto the oranges. So for this color scheme, I highly recommend going with a basing everything first approach and then doing your washes and your highlights. If you would like to do highlights. I might be doing highlights on this model because it is kind of a fancy looking model. But what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be doing the skin. There's not a whole lot of skin, so I figured I'd knock it out. We're using Bugman's Glow. Typically, we might not even need more than one coat. But if I need 2 coats, I'll just let you know how many coats I put on there. But yeah, so the orange is looking good. Let's get on to that skin tone. Well, here we have the Bugman's Glow. I started doing the Power Sword hand, but as I flipped it over, it's got this little part right, let's see if I can get this in frame, that little part right there, so it led me to believe that this is actually just a fully gloved hand, so I'm actually going to repaint over the little bit of Bugman's Glow I did there, and we'll just make that probably black, or maybe, yeah, probably black, or brown. But I did the face. We got 2 thin coats of Bugman's Glow on the face and 2 thin coats of Bugman's Glow on that one hand. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to be working from inside out, which means we're going to go on to a bed in black. Now, black is going to be the majority of the model, so yeah, when we come back, a lot of this will be base coated. So we have the first layer of Abaddon black. This I use a very thin down Abaddon black. Because if you let it get thick on the brush, it's kind of hard to control in these smaller details. But yeah, so got all the black parts kind of edged out. And yeah, so we're gonna go in for a second coat, clean it up, and we'll be back. And here we have the 2 coats of Abaddon black, covering really nicely across the model. What we're going to be doing next, now you can decide where you want to go from here. You can either do there's 2 main colors that we're going to be adding is silver and Rhinox hide. Rhinox hide for all of the pouches and silver for the guns and the swords and everything. And this little canteen pouch on the back. Because the canteen pouch has some leather strapping around it, I want to do silver first, so the leather strapping around it, which will be Rhinox hide, will be a little bit easier to paint over top. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're doing Rhinox hide, and which I have right here. That'll be the next color, and after that, we'll let you know what it looks like. Looking pretty good right now. I'm liking the colors. All right. Actually, I misspoke. We're going to be doing a lead belcher next, not Rhinox hide. So let's get those silvers on there, and we'll be right back. All right, did 2 layers, approximately 2 layers of silver. We used lead belcher color, and we did the bolt pistol, the power sword, and the grenades, as well as a little skull on the belt. And the little canteen on the backpack. There was a little overspill on the bolt pistol, but that's what the cleanup step is for. No worries. Now we're going to be moving on to the Rhinox hide. And after that, it's just a few various spots that we're going to pick out. For Rhinox hide, we're going to be doing his cigar, all the little pouches on his belt, and the backpack. And then we have a few additional accent colors to go through. But let's get on with that Rhinox hide. All right, so we did the Rhinox hide. We did 2 coats for the pouch in the front, the holster, and the backpack, as well as those straps on the backpack. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be picking out all the extra small details. So the Aquila on the backpack, the cable on the power sword, the little cigar, the rest of his mouth, the Aquila on the front, the little medal he has on his chest, and yeah, and then we're gonna leave the power sword glazing. I don't know if I'm gonna do the glazing or not. We'll figure it out. I probably won't, but yeah, maybe. Okay. Anyways, But for that, for those accents, we're going to be using Caldor Sky for the cable, for the power sword cable. We're going to use this blue. We're going to be using Mephiston Red for the metal, or for parts of the metal, and for his mouth, and maybe a little bit on the tip of the cigar. We're going to be using Retributor Armor for the metal on his chest. And we're going to be using Pro-Acryl Bull Titanium White for all the white accent parts that we're going to be doing. I really do like this. You can use other whites, like Vallejo Dead White works. But for the most part, this Pro-Acryl White tends to flow very smoothly. And I've ever since I got this white, I've not wanted to use any other white. Now, I would say the Game Color Arctic White works pretty well. The only issue with most whites is just keeping them a nice paintable consistency so they're not all flaky. Like this GW White Scar, like it's got hit or misses. Most of the GW whites are just not worth it. But the Pro-Acryl Bull Titanium White, I've really liked it. It's a bit overpowering with white, but it works really well for some of those smaller details. All right, and when we come back, we'll have all the other details picked out. Well, with all those little accent colors done, with the we got the white for the Aquila, we got the metal, got the ribbon on the power cable, and yeah, picked all those little colors out. What we're going to be doing next is we're just going to go around to all of the different colors, and we're going to be picking out any areas that need to be cleaned up. So we're going to go starting from orange, working our way back up all the way to the accent colors, and anywhere where there's line spillage, or when you're trying to color in the lines, anywhere where there was a mistake, we're going to fix all that. And so that's one of the key points, is you want a good solid base coat before you start doing any washes or any highlighting. I like to do a very crisp, clean base coat. So we're going to go and go through and picking all those out. Now, if you don't like the white for the Aquila, go for a lead belcher or keep it black, whatever you would like. I went with a white because it did turn out pretty well on the example models that I used, and once you add a wash to it, it really busts the definition out. So right now the white might look a little weird because the bold titanium white from Pro-Acryl is really saturating. It does like really kind of blind out the details because it's so white, but once you throw a wash on there, it'll look a lot better. Yeah, so let's do that and we'll be right back. So the cleanup is done. We've tidied up all the parts that we can see. What we're going to be doing next is we're going to be going through our wash step. Now I'm going to be just doing everything off camera all at once, and then we'll come back after it's done. But what we're going to be using for the washes is we're going to be using Nuln Oil. Now I have the newer one, but we're trying to just work our way through all of our old washes. So we have the older Nuln Oil. We have Fugin's Orange, which is the orange wash. This is what's really going to make this orange pop. You want to make sure you give that a good shake. Same with all the washes. And then we're going to be using Reikland Flesh Shade for the hands and the gold. And then we're going to be using Agarax Earth Shade for all of the Rhinox hide parts. All right, so I will get these washes applied, and then we'll be back and showing you what it looks like. All right, folks, with the washes, this model is pretty much tabletop ready. It's good to go. I mean, aside from doing a base and a rim, the paint job itself is pretty much done. Now, what can you do from this? Well, obviously, if you want to do some power weapon glow effects, feel free to give those a try. But more than likely, what you're thinking is like, well, I want to make this look a little bit nicer. I want to because it's a little bit muted because of all the washing. So essentially what you want to do is you want to kind of go back to your base colors. You can either go back to just your standard base colors, like for a bad and black, and then just kind of do a couple layers, a couple very thin coats for highlighting. If you want to highlight up to gray, you can, but these being smaller models, I don't really want to edge highlight all the way to gray because there's going to be probably 100 or so of these infantry models. So I kind of like, just having the orange be the pop, like inst amongst all this black, but I probably will go over and do a few more coats, mostly because some of the washes that I use got on the silver when I didn't want them to. So one of my grenades here looks a little red on the top. But aside from that, I feel like everything else kind of come together. I really like how the black Null Oil wash on the white popped out that Aquila on the helmet on the front. And I never do eyes on my Imperial Guard. They're just, the models are too small. The eyes are not really necessary for me when it comes to painting these. So more than likely what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go over a couple coats and do some highlights. But as far as the video is concerned, this is where I will leave you. Feel free to make it look a little bit nicer from this. And if you like the Penal Legion color scheme, feel free to let me know in the comments below, and hope you enjoyed. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to support me, there's a link to buy my novel. And aside from that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.